China's AI dominance isn't coming. It's already here, and the United States is scrambling to respond. In just 1 year, China is projected to pour up to $98 billion into artificial intelligence. That's nearly 4 times NASA's entire annual budget funneled into a single technology. You heard that right. The budget it takes to explore outer space, 4 times over, and China is spending it to dominate the future of intelligence on Earth. And what makes this even more unsettling is that America's own strategy to slow China down may have backfired in ways no one predicted. To understand how we got here, you have to start with the machine China has been quietly building for years, and it's nothing like what you've been told. The machine behind the curtain. If you think China's AI story is about one company or one viral chatbot, you're missing the bigger picture entirely. What China has built isn't a collection of startups chasing hype. It's a vertically integrated machine, and once you see how it works, you'll understand why the West is nervous. Start with the names you need to know: Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent, and Huawei. In the West, AI is fragmented. One company builds the model, another builds the chips, a third one runs the cloud. They're all brilliant, but they're operating in silos. In China, these 4 giants do it all under one roof. They build the models, run the cloud, own the data pipelines, and increasingly, they're designing their own chips. That's not a tech company, that's an ecosystem. Take Baidu. You probably know them as China's answer to Google. But what you might not know is that Baidu has invested over 100 billion yuan into AI since launching its ERNIE model in early 2023. Their AI cloud infrastructure revenue hit roughly 20 billion yuan in 2025 alone, growing over 30% year over year. Their autonomous ride-hailing service, Apollo Go, has completed over 20 million rides, making it the largest robotaxi fleet on the planet. And their latest foundation model, ERNIE 5.0, processes text, images, audio, and video all at once. This isn't a search engine anymore. This is a full-stack AI company operating at a scale most Western firms haven't even attempted. But Baidu is just one piece. Alibaba's Qwen model family has become one of the most downloaded open-source AI systems in the world, with over 40 million downloads. They've committed 380 billion yuan, roughly $50 billion, to cloud computing and AI over the next 3 years. Tencent, the company behind WeChat, has embedded its Humanoid model directly into the app that over 1 billion people use every single day. And then there's Huawei, a company the US has sanctioned, restricted, and tried to isolate, which responded by building its own Ascend AI chips and training its trillion-parameter Pangu model entirely on homegrown hardware. No NVIDIA, no American silicon, just Huawei, doing it alone. Now here's the part most people don't see. In the United States, if you want to build an AI product, you go to OpenAI for the model, to NVIDIA for the chips, to Amazon or Microsoft for the cloud, and then you stitch it all together yourself. In China, a single company can hand you the model, the cloud, the chips, and the deployment pipeline in one package. That's not just convenient, it's a structural advantage. It means faster iteration, tighter feedback loops, and the ability to move from research to deployment at a speed the West simply can't match right now. And what makes this even more powerful is the distribution layer. China's super apps, WeChat, Douyin, Taobao, each reach hundreds of millions of users daily. These aren't just apps. They're living, breathing AI testing grounds where models get deployed, refined, and scaled in real-world conditions at a pace that no Western sandbox can replicate. While Silicon Valley debates which model is smarter on benchmarks, China is embedding AI into retail, logistics, customer service, and urban infrastructure, quietly turning an entire economy into an AI-native system. But here's what most people still haven't caught on to. China's AI ambitions don't stop at software. The next frontier isn't a chatbot, it's a robot. And China is already building the bridge. When AI learns to walk. When most people think about artificial intelligence, they picture a chatbot on a screen, a text box, a conversation. But that's only half the story. And honestly, it might be the less important half. Because the next phase of AI isn't about what a machine can say. It's about what a machine can do with hands, with legs, in the physical world. And this is where China is making a move that almost nobody in the West is talking about. It's called Embodied AI, and in simple terms, it means artificial intelligence that doesn't just think it moves, it grips, it walks, it lifts, it works. And the companies leading this charge aren't in Silicon Valley. They're in Shenzhen and Hangzhou. Start with Unitree Robotics. This is a company based in Hangzhou that most people outside of China had never heard of until their humanoid robots performed at China's Spring Festival Gala, a broadcast watched by over 1 billion people. Their G1 humanoid robot starts at just $13,500. You heard that right. A walking, gripping, AI-driven humanoid robot for less than the price of a mid-range sedan. It stands about 4 feet, 3 inches tall, has up to 43 degrees of freedom, and can perform dynamic movements that would have been science fiction 5 years ago. They also launched the R1 in mid-2025 for under $5,000, a robot that Time magazine named one of the best inventions of the year. And Unitree isn't just building prototypes, they're mass-producing. They're preparing for a public listing that could value the company at $7 billion. This is not a lab experiment. This is an industry being born. Then there's UBTECH Robotics out of Shenzhen. While Unitree grabbed headlines with affordability, UBTECH went after scale. In 2025, they became the first company in the world to mass deliver full-size industrial humanoid robots. Their Walker S2 stands about 5 feet 9 inches tall and is designed for factory floors, not tech demos. They rolled out their 1,000th unit within 6 months of starting production. Their order book exceeded 800 million yuan, roughly $112 million, with contracts from BYD, Geely, Foxconn, FAW, Volkswagen, and SF Express. These aren't pilot programs collecting dust. These are real robots on real assembly lines, working 24 hours a day, swapping their own batteries without human help. And UBTECH's production targets tell you where this is heading. 5,000 units a year by 2026, 10,000 by 2027. Now step back and look at the bigger picture. According to the International Federation of Robotics, China installed nearly 300,000 industrial robots in 2024 alone. That's 54% of every industrial robot installed on the planet that year, more than half. The country's robot density, the number of robots per 10,000 workers, nearly quintupled in just 6 years, jumping from 97 in 2017 to 470 by 2023. And Morgan Stanley projects the global humanoid robot market could reach $5 trillion by 2050, with China expected to lead in both development and adoption. So while the West debates whether AI chatbots will take your job, China is building the robots that will actually do your job physically, on a factory floor, around the clock. And they're doing it at a price point that makes global competition nearly impossible. But the real question isn't whether China can build the robots. It's whether anyone can stop them from building the chips that power everything behind them. And that brings you to the most consequential miscalculation in modern technology: the chip war that backfired. Here's where the story takes its sharpest turn. Because what the United States did next wasn't just a policy decision, it was a bet. A bet that cutting China off from the most advanced chips in the world would cripple its AI ambitions. And for a moment, it looked like it might work. But then something happened that almost nobody in Washington saw coming. China didn't slow down. It sped up. The strategy was straightforward. Starting in 2022, the U.S. government rolled out a series of export controls designed to choke China's access to the hardware that powers artificial intelligence. The targets were surgical. NVIDIA's most advanced GPUs, the A100, the H100, and eventually even the downgraded H20, were restricted or banned from sale to Chinese companies. Then came the second blow. The US pressured the Netherlands into blocking ASML, the only company on the planet that makes extreme ultraviolet lithography machines, from selling its most advanced equipment to China. These EUV systems are the backbone of cutting-edge chip manufacturing. Without them, You simply cannot mass-produce processors at the most advanced nodes 5 nanometers, 3 nanometers, and below. On paper, this was a chokehold. Without the chips and without the machines to make them, China's AI engine should have stalled. But it didn't stall. It pivoted. What the export controls actually triggered was a national mobilization. China's government set up a semiconductor investment fund worth nearly $48 billion. Huawei, a company that had already been sanctioned and nearly had its smartphone business destroyed, came back with something the US didn't expect: its own AI chip. The Ascend 910C, fabricated by China's SMIC on a 7-nanometer process without any EUV technology, became the centerpiece of a domestic alternative. Huawei then unveiled the Cloud Matrix 384, a system connecting 384 of these Ascend chips into a single cluster that, by some raw computing metrics, rivals NVIDIA's own flagship rack. Is it as efficient? No. Is it as refined? Not yet. But the point isn't perfection, the point is that it exists at all. A few years ago, this wasn't even on the roadmap. And Huawei isn't working alone. SMIC is doubling its 7-nanometer production capacity. China's total chip output grew over 10% in the first 10 months of 2025 alone, reaching nearly 387 billion units. And in early 2025, Chinese scientists in Shenzhen reportedly completed a working EUV lithography prototype reverse-engineered from ASML's technology using salvaged parts. It hasn't produced commercial chips yet. But the fact that it exists tells you everything about the direction this is heading. Then came the most revealing admission of all. NVIDIA's own CEO Jensen Huang publicly said the export controls had been a failure. He pointed out that 4 years ago, NVIDIA held 95% of China's AI chip market. Today, that number has dropped to around 50%, with the rest now filled by domestic Chinese technology. The restrictions didn't eliminate the competition, they created it. And here's the part that should keep you thinking. China's AI labs didn't just wait for better hardware, they adapted. DeepSeek, one of China's most talked about AI startups, built models that rivaled the performance of systems trained on far more powerful chips at a fraction of the cost. Chinese developers began optimizing their architectures to squeeze more performance out of less capable hardware, a discipline that may actually give them a long-term efficiency edge even if the chip gap closes. When you're forced to do more with less, you learn things that companies with unlimited resources never have to. So the US tried to build a wall, but instead of keeping China out, it taught China how to build its own foundation. And now, that foundation is being reinforced by something even harder to compete with: the raw energy that powers it all. The power behind the power. There's a part of the AI race that almost no one talks about. It's not glamorous, it doesn't make headlines, but it might matter more than any model, any chip, or any robot. Because at the end of the day, artificial intelligence runs on one thing: electricity. And whoever controls the power controls the scale. Right now, that advantage belongs to China. To understand why, you need to know about a program most people in the West have never heard of. It's called Eastern Data, Western Computing. Launched by China's central government, it's a nationwide plan to build massive data center clusters in the country's western provinces, places like Inner Mongolia, Guizhou, Gansu, and Ningxia, where land is cheap, temperatures are cool, and most importantly, energy is abundant. The idea is simple, but devastating in its ambition. Move the computing to where the power is. While the US is still arguing over permits and grid connections, China is coordinating data center construction with power plant development at the national level. These aren't separate projects. They're one integrated system. And the numbers are staggering. By the end of 2025, China's total installed power generation capacity reached 3.89 terawatts. To give you a sense of what that means in a single year, China added roughly 540 gigawatts of new capacity. The United States, by comparison, added about 63 gigawatts during the same period. China added power at more than 8 times the pace of the US. You heard that right, 8 times. And a massive share of that new capacity was renewable. Over 430 gigawatts of wind and solar alone were installed in 2025. China became the first country in the world to surpass 1,000 gigawatts of solar capacity. Its combined wind and solar now exceeds 1.8 terawatts, nearly half of all installed power capacity in the country. And in early 2025, for the first time in China's history, renewable capacity overtook coal. Now here's why this matters for AI. Training a single frontier model can consume as much electricity as a small town uses in a year. Running inference at scale, the process of actually deploying AI in the real world requires sustained, massive, uninterrupted power. In the United States, data center operators are already running into bottlenecks. Morgan Stanley has forecast that U.S. data centers could face a 44 gigawatt electricity shortfall within the next few years. American power demand has been essentially flat for 2 decades, and the infrastructure wasn't built for this kind of surge. China doesn't have that problem. It built its grid in anticipation of demand, not in reaction to it. And it's not just about raw generation. China has invested over $85 billion in grid infrastructure in a single year, building ultra-high voltage transmission lines that can move electricity thousands of miles from Western generation sites to Eastern data centers with minimal loss. It has completed 39 ultra-high voltage projects, with nearly 30 more planned by 2030. This isn't a patchwork grid. It's a national AI power highway. Meanwhile, new data centers built in China's western hubs are targeting over 80% of their electricity from renewable sources. Sichuan province alone gets 85% of its power from hydroelectric generation. Some facilities are achieving what most Western data centers only promise: genuinely green AI at scale. And China's hyperscale data center market, valued at around $8 billion in 2025, is projected to reach nearly $40 billion by 2031. The infrastructure isn't being planned, it's being poured. This gives China something that's almost impossible to replicate quickly: a structural energy advantage. The US has the best chips, but China has the electrons to run them at scale. And in a race where the bottleneck is increasingly about power, not processing, that changes the entire equation. And this is the part where all the threads come together. Because the chips, the robots, the software, the data centers, the energy, none of them exist in isolation. What makes China's position so formidable isn't any single piece. It's what happens when you connect them all. The machine with no off switch. This is the part where you stop looking at the pieces and start seeing the machine. Because everything you've just learned, the vertically integrated tech giants, the humanoid robots shipping to factory floors, the domestic chips being built under sanctions, the data centers powered by a grid no other country can match, none of it is accidental. And none of it works alone. It works because it's connected. That's China's real advantage. It's not a breakthrough, it's a system. Think about what happens when Baidu trains a new version of Ernie on Huawei's Ascend chips inside a data center in Guizhou powered by hydroelectric energy, and then deploys that model into a fleet of autonomous vehicles operating across 26 cities. Or when UBTECH ships 1,000 Walker S2 robots to BYD's assembly line, each one running AI models optimized on domestic hardware, operating around the clock on a factory floor that never shuts down. Every layer feeds the next. The models improve with real-world data. The chips get better with each generation. The robots generate more training data every shift. The energy grid expands to support the next wave of compute. It's a flywheel. And once a flywheel reaches speed, stopping it isn't just difficult, it's almost impossible. In the United States, AI leadership is concentrated in a handful of brilliant but disconnected players. One company builds the models, another builds the chips, a third runs the cloud. A fourth handles the energy. They don't share a unified strategy, they don't coordinate across layers, and they certainly don't have a national plan tying it all together. That's not a criticism of American innovation. It's a structural observation. The US has the talent. It has the research. It has the capital. But competing against a system requires building a system. And right now, America is bringing individual athletes to a relay race where the other side has already practiced every handoff. And the gap isn't just structural, it's philosophical. China's government treats AI the way the United States once treated the space race, as a matter of national priority, funded and coordinated at the highest levels. The difference is that China isn't just racing to plant a flag. It's racing to build the entire economy around what it finds when it gets there. Every ministry, every province, every state-owned enterprise is aligned behind the same objective. That kind of coordination doesn't guarantee success, but it guarantees speed. And in a technology race, speed compounds. China has also bet heavily on something the West has largely ignored: the physical layer of AI. While Silicon Valley pours billions into making chatbots smarter, China is embedding intelligence into the real world, into factories, into warehouses, into power grids, into cities, into border crossings and logistics networks, and automotive assembly lines. This isn't theoretical deployment. It's already happening at a scale that most Western observers haven't fully processed. And once AI is woven into the physical infrastructure of an economy, into the way goods are manufactured, transported, inspected, and delivered, it doesn't get unwoven. It becomes the economy. It becomes permanent. That's what makes this moment different from every previous tech race. This isn't about who publishes the best research paper. It's not about who has the smartest model on a leaderboard. It's about who builds the infrastructure that the next 50 years of economic productivity will run on. And if you're watching the trajectory honestly, without bias, without comfort, the answer is becoming harder and harder to ignore. The track and the runner. So where does this leave you? If you've followed every thread in this story, the ecosystems, the robots, the chip war, the energy grid, the system, then you already know the answer. China's AI rise isn't built on hype. It isn't built on a single viral moment or one flashy demo. It's built on concrete, silicon, steel, and kilowatt hours. It's built on a strategy that connects every layer of the stack into a single, self-reinforcing machine, one that gets stronger the longer it runs. And the trajectory isn't slowing down. Morgan Stanley projects that China's core AI industry could be valued at $140 billion by 2030, with related sectors pushing that figure to $1.4 trillion. The humanoid robot market alone could reach $5 trillion globally by 2050, with China expected to hold the largest share of both development and deployment. The country already installs more than half of every industrial robot on the planet. It already trains frontier AI models on homegrown chips. It already powers its data centers with the fastest-growing energy grid in human history. And it already deploys AI not as a product you subscribe to, but as a layer embedded into the physical world at industrial scale. This isn't a country experimenting with AI. This is a country reorganizing itself around AI, from its energy grid to its factory floors to its national defense strategy. And that distinction matters more than any benchmark score ever could. And here's what makes this truly hard to counter. Every restriction the West has imposed, every chip ban, every export control, every attempt to slow China down has been absorbed, adapted to, and in many cases, turned into fuel. The sanctions didn't stop the machine. They taught it to run on its own parts. They forced a level of self-reliance that, once achieved, can't be taken back. What was meant to be a containment strategy became an accelerant. And now, the very independence the West feared is the foundation China stands on. You were told this was a race. But what if one side isn't just running, it's building the track? And by the time the rest of the world realizes what's been laid down, the question won't be who's ahead. It'll be whether there's still a race at all.